Prepare yourselves. It's Big News Wednesday. It is not, however, just Big News Wednesday. It's Big Birthday Wednesday with Jayar Jackson, the birthday boy. I guess that's the big leadoff breaking news of the day, Jayar. Happy birthday.
If you guys didn't check CNN, Google search, you missed the news because it's headline type of information, just to make sure you guys know. Fox News,
it's important news,
even ran one. They're like, you know what? It's a different day. It's a different kind of day.
Well, it's big news for two reasons. It's not just the personal side that it is your birthday, which is news enough, but Jayar Jackson is now old enough to run for president officially in time for 2024. He just hit the threshold. So that is big political news too. So everyone needs to recognize that.
Gonna announce my candidacy to run for president of the United States.
DeSanctimonious doesn't have a shot.
Really? This is the threshold, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
No. But anyway,
release my information in a roundabout backdoor way.
He hit 35. So anyway, thank you for spending your birthday very unwisely at work and doing two shows back to back.
Yeah, so you know what? Doing two shows back to back, or then doing a third show and then a second hour, then a bonus episode is insane. I would never do such a thing.
Exactly. No, I was complaining about something earlier in the show, and Jayar's in the process of doing basically what I was complaining about, but without a break between them. So anyway, thank you for doing all that on your birthday. It's a horrible present you've given to yourself, but that's what it is. So anyway, what I can give you, what's that?
Nothing, I'll wait.
Okay, the birthday presents I'm gonna give you, some interesting news, not only having to do with the right, like trying to grapple with Pence throwing a document-sized grenade into their plans to take down Joe Biden, I guess. Could we be looking at President Manchin? We'll consider the possibilities. Some of the Twitter developments recently proving again and again, Elon Musk is a genius, whether you like it or not. And special guests coming up in in the aftermath. Congressman Ro Khanna is gonna be joining us. So that's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a fun little talk with the congressman. But before all of that, please hit the like button, share the stream so that people know we're live. And if you wanna send us any comments, tweets, or super chats, we'll respond as we go. But with all that said, Jayar, are you ready to start the show?
I feel like I am.
I feel like I'm almost am. But the show must go on. So I guess we're just gonna do it anyway. Let's jump into that. As expected, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has now formally removed both Representatives Adam Schiff as well as Eric Swalwell from the House Intelligence Committee. He was very proud of himself because remember, he's the speaker, he's the leader technically. He put out this tweet saying, I have rejected the appointments of Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell for the House Intelligence Committee. I am committed to returning the House Intel Committee to one of genuine honesty and credibility that regains the trust of the American people. And look, I don't like the first part of that tweet, but I do want to give Kevin McCarthy a little bit of credit for injecting a bit of humor into the political discourse of the day. That's pretty good. The right is getting better at comedy. So yes, it's gonna have some honesty and credibility after they take out a couple of people who dared to question Donald Trump over the past few years. So that's cool. Anyway, he's got some explanations as to why he felt he needed to do this. Take a look at this.
What did Adam Schiff do as the chairman of the Intel Committee? What Adam Schiff did, use his power as a chairman and lie to the American public. Even the Inspector General said it. When Devin Nunes put out a memo, he said it was false. When we had a laptop, he used it before an election to be politics and say that it was false and said it was the Russians, when he knew different.
So, he's basically catching you up on the last season or two of 4chan. So whatever nonsense he just said. By the way, like Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff, I don't particularly care about either of them. Like I'm not in their booster club or whatever. I probably agree with them on some stuff and probably far more often don't agree with them on the vast majority of political stuff. That said, this is BS, and every reasonable, rational person needs to be willing to identify it as BS. This is strike back. It's the exact same sort of strike back. The exact same process is playing out that we have seen over and over and over again since 2016, both in substance, and I would classify this as substantive, taking them out off of their committees, as well as in rhetoric, which is the right does a thing that's crazy and unprecedented and finally demands a response from a DC that so rarely wants to actually do anything, finally says, okay, in this case, Marjorie Greene is out of her mind, she's off her gourd, I guess we'll take her off of the committee. And eventually Gosar too, because they're continually talking about killing their colleagues, I guess we'll finally do something. So then they do it, and the right immediately says like, oh my God, a new precedent has been set. No, but you guys set the precedent, the insane precedent, okay? And you may not like Adam Schiff, and you may not like Eric Swalwell, and if Adam Schiff challenges Porter for the Senate seat of California, I'm not gonna like him either. But he is not calling for the murder of his colleagues. That's not what is going on. This is like, I have hated the substance-free like political equivalences that get thrown around by the media and by politicians, the both sidesing and all that, the whataboutism and all that. But this is one of the most ridiculous examples of it. The idea that you would strip them from their committees as payback for two people who should never be within 100 miles of governance is just insane. We have more, but Jayar, what do you think?
It's the promise that McCarthy was talking about before he, before they even won their slim majority in the House, and also before he won his slim speakership position there, because he has to follow through on it now for those crazed folks. Maybe keep track of those other promises that he made or things that he says he's gonna do and investigate, because this is what we're gonna be looking at now. It's a revenge tour. It's basically what they think they sold their winnings on, and that's what people wanna see. I think as they continue to go down this road, people aren't really gonna wanna see it. Because after they, of course, boot people off of committees for reasons unknown or just made up, as he's going through that, we're gonna see how the process works. We're gonna see what they try to get done. We're gonna see what they focus on. And I think more and more, even some supporters of theirs are gonna go, wait, this? What happened to fighting back against inflation? What happened to straightening out and cleaning out the swamp as you then go back and support Donald Trump again? It's gonna start to be more and more glaring how much they really don't care about the things they say and the principles that they say they're holding on to. And then if the opposing politicians are smart, they'll continue to point out those folks who he did put on these positions, and when they did get kicked off, the things he now supports. So he supports people going to Klan rallies and following behind Nick Fuentes and then posting videos of murdering your colleagues. Because then if someone else does it, that's a Democrat, they'll lose their minds, pull their hair out. But one last thing, you can know, I think it was Adam Kinzinger. He called Kevin McCarthy a piece of excrement. Said the full expletive word there when he was talking about him. It's because he's only looking for power. And part of that was exhibited by as he showed this anger in that press conference or when he's behind the mic. I got rid of Adam Schiff for this reason. Like, come on, bro. Ted Cruz tried that already, and when he was slamming the podium, nobody's buying your fake anger. What are you so mad about? You're in control, you're in power. You got rid of the guy. Shouldn't you be smiling? No, there's this anger he has to try and portray because he's so serious about this. In reality, he's BSing.
No, 100%. It's so like Ted Cruz is probably, I'm glad that you brought that up because he's probably the best example of like, we can see who you are. Come on, like who are you trying to kid? But Kevin McCarthy also, it's I mentioned to Jayar like a couple days ago. I've recently restarted watching a little bit of wrestling, and the thing is, sometimes someone tries to play a character, and they clearly aren't that person, and so they get booed. The fans don't accept them. The difference between wrestling and politics, though, is the wrestling fans are way more perceptive. Like they can look at these people like, you're a weenie. You're never gonna convince me you're not a weenie. Stop screaming. You're just a weenie. You're just a weenie that's louder now. You're not tougher. You're not scarier. You don't have more gravitas. But the difference is that the Republican base, they'll like this. They'll like this so much that they will ignore the fact that, oh wait, wasn't there supposed to be something economic? Weren't we saying something about being left behind? How is this helping me? How is any of this helping me? They won't think about that because they'll think, yes, we got him back. I assume that Marjorie Greene and Gosar being taken off was purely partisan and wasn't obviously necessary. I just accept that and I will never allow you to convince me otherwise. And so now we finally have payback. And so you could just leave me out in the cold. No insurance, no retirement, I'm gonna lose my house, whatever. but I'll be happy out there because I'll have my revenge. That's what's going on.
Let's talk about Swalwell, because you have not had the briefing that I had. I had the briefing and Nancy Pelosi had the briefing from the FBI. The FBI never came before this Congress to tell the leadership of this Congress that Eric Swalwell had a problem with a Chinese spy until he served on intel. So it wasn't just us who were concerned about it. The FBI was concerned about putting a member of Congress on the intel committee that has the rights to see things that others don't because of his knowledge and relationship with a Chinese spy. They brought it to the works of the leaders. I've got that briefing. So I do not believe he should sit on there.
Yeah, no, he doesn't believe any of what he just said. He's not a particularly bright person. Very few of them actually are, but he's smart enough to know that the stuff about the Chinese spy is ancient, debunked nonsense that only the dumbest, most naive right-wingers online care at all about. It means nothing. And by the way, if it existed, if it was damning, again, I don't give much of an anything about Eric Swalwell. If it turned out that he was super corrupt and all that, I think we've proven we're perfectly comfortable criticizing or even attacking the Democrats. But this is nonsense. And again, if you are in the business of trying to provide actual fact-based, reality-based oversight, actually criticizing people where they need to be criticized, it should annoy you to no end when nonsense is used to attack people. Because again, when you train people to look at politics through the lens of madness, of conspiracism, then how are you ever going to get them to pay attention to reality? To look at, like we say constantly, follow the money and everything, follow the actual money, the fact-based. But if people will believe whatever they read on a forum or whatever, then you cannot make an actual fact-based, reality-based case. And that is more annoying than almost anything else in politics these days. The spy stuff is absolute nonsense. He responded with that. Of course, it doesn't matter. It's not gonna give him back on the committee, but Swalwell tweeted, this rejection is based on a claim that the Washington Post independent fact checker gave 4 Pinocchios. Speaker Boehner and Ryan, both Gang of 8 members, appointed me to Intel with access to the same facts McCarthy is distorting. He can keep me off Intel, but I'm not going away. Again, like it is not impossible that someone on the Washington Post could run cover for an establishment Democrat. Sure, they could. But again, he's pointing out this is so ancient that many of you watching probably don't even remember when Boehner and Ryan were notable Republicans. That's how ancient this stuff is. But now it's so pressing that Swalwell immediately has to be booted off. It has nothing to do with the fact that Kevin McCarthy's future is now in the hands of Marjorie Greene and people like her. So anyway, those are the 2 that are off. He's also expected to hold a floor vote on kicking Representative Ilhan Omar off the Foreign Affairs Committee for the crime of being Muslim. Let's be clear about that. Though that could face opposition from his own party. Representatives Nancy Mace and Victoria Spartz have both said they oppose kicking Democrats off their committees. This is, I don't know too much about Victoria Spartz. Nancy Mace, this is apparently an actual principled position. Nancy Mace is the worst. She has said some truly reprehensible things, particularly about Representative Ocasio-Cortez in the wake of the insurrection. But here she is being at least something like principled, Jayar. So that's good to see.
Yeah, Nancy Mason does that from time to time. She also has some points when they were talking about the debate over McCarthy, and she's talking about Roe v. Wade, and she's very much pro-life, she says, but she also has many exceptions. So she's somewhere in the middle on certain issues, and she's very vocal about those things, so people won't really pay attention to the things that she's is about, which is 98% of every other Republican. But you talked about Kevin McCarthy and how he's not beholden to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Also the fact that he did point out and say openly that he says, I will never leave that woman. I will always take care of her. Does that sound like a leader that's looking to do something legislatively or something for the country? I will never leave that woman. I will always take care of her. I'm sure your constituents would love to hear you say that about them. Instead, it's about her because this is about your political power. And now she was a big assist and broke with her normal gang of crazy to help you get that position. So now that you're there, you owe her. This is the position that the Speaker of the House is in. And he also owes the rest of the crazies. This is the reason why he got rid of Swalwell and Schiff and he hopes that Donald Trump is sitting there from Mar-a-Lago nodding and going, good job, Kip, good job.
Yeah, it's such an embarrassing thing to have to say, and such a weird way to put it if you are gonna say it. I don't wanna think anymore about why he worded it that way, but again, like he's experiencing something of what people like Ted Cruz and others have experienced, where like they're coming up and they're thinking, I'm gonna be such hot whatever, I'm so smart, I got this whole thing locked down. It's probably gonna be perfectly fine if I chain my wagon to craziness. That's not gonna bite me on the ass at all. And now he has to do basically whatever Marjorie Greene wants. Like that's why he's doing this. In any event, good on Spartz, good on Mace. We'll see if they actually come through for it. But let's be very clear if it wasn't clear enough. Again, with Ilhan Omar, this is just giving Fox News and the right-wing base what they want. How dare this woman have been a migrant, a refugee? How dare she be a Muslim? How dare she be strong and outspoken? We're gonna take her down. By the way, the people who are going to say that she necessarily has to be taken off the committee are the same people that thought that Marjorie Greene, whatever her comments were about space lasers, about putting a bullet in Pelosi's head, they didn't think that justified taking her off many committees. Let's be clear. 8 Republicans voted for her to be stripped from her committee, which means that well over 100 didn't. But they do think that whatever it is that Ilhan Omar said is going to be all the justification necessary. So look forward to for that in the near future. With that said, those are the people that have to be taken off committees, but not everybody did have to be rejected from committees. Let's jump to this next video and we'll talk about it.
You know why I'm standing by him? Because his constituents voted for him. I do not have the power simply because if I disagree with somebody or what they have said, that I remove them from elected office. Now, I will hold him to the same standard I hold anyone else elected to Congress. If for some way when we go through ethics that he has broken the law, then we will remove him.
That's Kevin McCarthy talking about George Santos, I think. He might be talking about Anthony DeValder, or maybe that Mr. Zabrowski. I'm not sure, one of those people. And you'll notice like his hands are tied. What am I gonna do? I can't do anything. After all, people voted for him based entirely on lies, which he fully understands. He can't do anything. No, notice he put George Santos on 2 committees, knowing that this guy has, and not 15 years ago, there was a conspiracy theory about him. No, like up until right now, every day, new lies come out. We're not covering most of the new lies today, by the way, but they keep coming out every single day. There's nothing that Kevin McCarthy can do. But he did put him on the science committee. He did put him on the small business committee, despite all of the lies. I guess maybe if he's charged with something, then I guess we'll take him off, which is a very bold stance to take. I guess if he's hauled away to federal prison, then I'll take him off of his committees. In any event, we might not have to wait that long for this because recently he's getting in trouble over some campaign finance stuff. He has previously claimed that he lent his campaign more than $700,000, which is pretty amazing considering that just a couple of years ago he didn't have a couple $1,000s, let alone $700,000 to give his campaign. 2 new filings with the FEC though show amendments to previous disclosures. Now, these loans of $500,000 and $125,000, the box that would mark that they're coming from his personal funds is all of a sudden not marked anymore. Oops. I guess when I was running for office, I pretended it was my money, and now I'm gonna say that it's not. It probably doesn't make a difference, like a legal difference or anything. He's now facing questions, as I said. Let's see how he responds to the initial round of questioning about this change.
I have no comment for you on that. I have no clue what you're talking about, man. Have a great day.
And I'm just gonna continue to be amazed by the fact that the only thing that he felt like he needed to rebut initially was that he had been a drag queen. Again, he was also lying in his rebuttal of that, but that he felt like he had to get out in front of this thing. The idea that he might have committed like gross violations of campaign finance law, I got no comment. I don't say anything, go away. What do you think I am, a representative, an elected official that has to answer for my actions? No, Jayar, what do you think?
Yo, this is the thing. They have to revise their reasons behind it. Again, the second part of his angry rant, and he also didn't want to pull anyone off of committees and all that stuff because the constituents voted for George Santos. They voted for Anthony DeVolder, I guess. But the thing is, since they did so, as you mentioned, his hands are tied. He can't do anything about it. Doesn't that same sentence apply to Ilhan Omar, Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff? Their constituents voted for them. Your hands should be tied across the board, or it's very explicit that your hands are only tied based off of what you want. So you've tied your own hands. Just say it, bro. I don't like them. It's okay. Donald Trump got away with it. I don't like them. I got rid of them. They're against me. They're snitches. Anything you can say. Call them a couple names. It worked. Your general support system among these voters and other politicians is based in stupid. So you can go stupid. You don't have to try and come up with some kind of real reason behind it because it doesn't make any sense. But then again, maybe I'm working too hard by having a thought process. He doesn't have to say anything, just go with it. Don't you hate them? That's all we need to hear. That's his process, that's his approach. Again, these are the people who are helping run the country, who are passing laws. This is their thought process. It's all based in revenge. And by the way, he said until an ethics shows that Santos broke the law, I can't do anything. You mean that whole ethics committee that you guys are trying to dismantle and gut any kind of teeth to? It doesn't make any sense, but they know most people can't and don't have the time to pay attention.
Yeah, it makes no sense from the point of view of reason. It makes perfect sense if your goal is to protect people like George Santos from any consequences whatsoever. And you rightly pointed out that the ethics committee has been defanged, so that's gonna help him. And he was so happy when that happened, by the way. But there are, of course, also many other layers of protection for people like George Santos. So for instance, we might see one after not only the $700,000 are looked into, but the other incredibly suspicious activities when it comes to campaign finance. So bear in mind, he was already facing a complaint from the FEC alleging that his campaign repeatedly reported suspicious expenses, including 8 charges of exactly $199.99 at an Italian restaurant in Queens. I guess he's got a regular meal. He just knows exactly what it's gonna come out to. Another $199.99 charge at a Miami area hotel where rooms do not usually go for less than $600 per night. The specific amount matters because campaigns are required by law to keep receipts or invoices for expenses greater than $200. So either they are doing this to avoid having to disclose that information, but that's crazy talk, or everything they buy costs exactly $199.99 because that's a thing. Interestingly, FEC data shows that more than 90% of House and Senate campaign committees around the country didn't report a single transaction valued between $199 and $199.99 during the 2022 election cycle, whereas Santos reported 40 of them. So, but again, there's like the initial reasonable reaction to this, and then the oh wait, now I remember where I am reaction. So the reasonable reaction from me, and I think very reasonable people watching this, is he obviously is evading disclosure requirements. He's obviously getting one over when it comes to campaign finance. And then you realize they're not gonna do anything about it. Like it doesn't matter that he did. Now, campaign finance violations are one thing that sometimes people have gotten in trouble for, like Dinesh D'Souza, for instance. It has happened, but like if they find out that these 40 things were invalid, they're gonna fine him $50,000. He's gonna get it from Trump or something. Like they're not gonna kick him out over this. I hope that I'm wrong, Jayar, but I cannot believe that even this obvious repetitive violations of the law will result in him losing his position.
He needs him. The majority is very slim. He needs him. That's the bottom line.
Yep, 100%. Okay, when we come back, Fox News having to grapple with Mike Pence being the third person to have stolen a bunch of classified documents. We'll give you their attempts to figure that out after this. Nothing like Indiana. Your voice starting to go out.
Yeah, that person in Indiana definitely makes me remember why I left the Midwest and why I'm living in Los Angeles, where we deal with earthquakes at 4 o'clock in the morning, like today.
I did hear about that. I did feel it. I never do. Yeah, I occasionally miss snow, but what I don't miss is that bad snow. Having to dig your car out and scrape your windows, and your hands are just like twisted red claws.
Hey, you know what I haven't owned since I was 18 years old is an ice scraper. I saw one of those randomly, and like I was up in Big Bear in the mountains. I was like, oh man, look at this relic.
Yeah, seeing an ice scraper is like seeing like an original NES. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Anyway, people are. Well, I have a response, Jonathan. I'll get to your comment during the next break. We should probably jump into the news before I lose the last remnants of my voice. Let's jump into this.
I mean, Pence, seriously.
Yeah.
We have this great thing going with Joe.
Yeah, and you just ruined it.
And
did.
come on, man.
Yeah.
Well, what are we gonna do?
And then he confessed to it.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have just destroyed it. We never would have known.
And we have to be fair and balanced and show both sides.
I know, now we have to show both sides. And you know Pence is so clean. He's so squeaky clean.
He is clean.
It's nothing like the real bad documents that Joe Biden was squirreling away.
Do you think he just wanted to be included?
There's the five just having a little bit of fun and joking about how this Pence document scandal is inconvenient for them, and joking that he should have just shredded the documents, and joking that it's not as bad as Biden's thing. And when I say joking, I mean that like they had that tone of voice, but other than that, they were 100% serious. I was saying in our production meeting this morning, it's one of the reasons I don't really like talking about Jesse Waters, because like he doesn't even do the thing that the rest of them do where he pretends to believe the stuff he's saying. It's obvious and honest coming off of what he's saying. Yeah, he just wishes Mike Pence had shredded the documents. He doesn't care that Mike Pence did this. He does find it to be inconvenient in their partisan, ridiculous attempt to take down Joe Biden while pretending Trump didn't do anything wrong. And when he said there like, oh, Joe Biden's stuff is worse, it is clear that he doesn't actually believe that. Now, they're gonna go forward because again, it's a joke, except that they mean it 100%. They're gonna continue to attack Joe Biden on it. But this is how they communicate about this. They're perfectly comfortable telling their audience, all of this is fake. We don't mean anything we say. We just wanna take down our enemies or the people we tell you are your enemies. That's it, and that's how we interpret literally everything. And the reason they can say that is because their audience wants that same thing. Like their audience is not a right-wing version of you watching this. They don't hold the same values. They don't care if what they're saying is true or right, if they are actually holding a position of moral superiority. They just like to feel like that's the position that they're holding. That's it. It's all about power. That's all it is. And so Jesse Waters can go on to say something like this, and he doesn't care that this, what I'm about to read you, makes no sense whatsoever. Biden looks suspicious. That's the difference here. Pence found documents. Box was still shut, put them in a safe, handed them right over. Trump had documents. He's allowed to. He's president. The librarians knew he had them and he admitted he had them, but Biden's been caught with documents all over. He doesn't need to pretend to believe any of that stuff. That's why he's doing such a bad job of making the case. Pence found documents, but don't worry, the box was shut. Oh, okay, well that does make a big difference. He handed them right over, exactly like Joe Biden did. Joe Biden and Pence apparently did the exact same thing. They saw what was happening with Trump, so they started searching their locations. They found documents, they turned them in. That's what they did. It's very different than what Trump did, which is that yes, Jesse Waters, Trump had documents, but no, obviously he's not allowed to have them. He's president. He wasn't president when he stole them. You know that. I think that you should be able to understand that. The librarians knew he had them and he admitted he had them. They tried for 18 months to get them back and he refused to hand them over. You know that. We know all of this and it's all irrelevant because again, he doesn't really need to make a good case or pretend to hold actual principles because his audience doesn't want that. They just want to win. Sorry, Jayar. It's a frustrating story because everybody is so fake and so stupid.
There's folks like this, and you illustrated it perfectly. There's folks like this whose success, whose reality can be based in absolutely not doing the homework, the work, or giving the real answer. It's like there's two different classes. I mean, these are supporters and you get promoted because you're on this particular network and the folks that watch it expect bias, even though you say over and over again with a wink, unbiased. So you do it over and over again. This is a similar, imagine if you're in class and then half the class gets to do the math test and get 0 answers right and say, but I'm right. And the other side of the class has to actually study, get the right answers and come up with it so that the people who are judging them, which be their constituents or supporters go, yeah, you know what, that's right. That's why I support you, because you do things based in reality. For some reason, which I think we can get into in how they've poisoned many people's minds, the way they go about this is to make sure that they've cultivated this audience that doesn't care if the answer is right. They don't care if they've done the research, they've done the homework. As long as they say something that gets them excited about hating someone else. Yo, It's totally different. Yo, you're wrong. The reality is you're wrong. But they can exist in this alternate form of reality because the people who listen to them want that. When Geraldo says something to make sense on Fox News, the commenters are like, why is Geraldo on Fox News? He's not supposed to talk like this. They expect the bias. And it's an easy job, it's an easy gig to just lie all day and not say anything that makes any sense.
I'm glad that you mentioned the teacher thing, because it makes me think of like two classes with two teachers, and they're both teaching math. And one is like, here's how you do division, and you do the thing with the carry the thing, and the kids are like, oh God. And then the other one is like, here's how you do division. 10 divided by 5 is Spider-Man. And the kids are like, yeah, Spider-Man.
Watch a movie.
Exactly. And you might think, well, that's crazy. You couldn't do that. Well, that's because, again, you're on the left of the spectrum. So you're imagining, well, that's crazy because then the kids won't learn math. And obviously the point of being in a classroom is to learn things. No. The incentives in this case, if we're being honest about the metaphor, is that one teacher is trying to teach math, the other is trying to be popular with the class, and that's the only thing that determines if they keep their job. They don't need the kids to actually pass a test. And of course, the equivalent in a news thing is, what if one news network wanted you to understand what was going on so that you could interact in a productive way with politics, and the other just wanted to make you feel warm and cute and soft? What about that? How would that work out? And that is exactly what is going on. They don't need their audience to know anything. They don't want their audience to know anything. And honestly, their audience is less interested in learning than even they are. But that's how they gain popularity and clout and money and all of it. And I want to give you an example of somebody who fully understands that. Let's jump at this next video.
Mike Pence, of all people, has just swooped in to save Joe Biden. Yes, Mike Pence. A man so flamboyantly pure he won't have dinner with ladies not his wife. And yet Mike Pence also had secret documents in his house, just like Joe Biden. Bet you didn't see that coming.
Okay, so let's first note, of course, that there has to be a casually homophobic comment. It is Tucker Carlson. He was raised by a homophobic and transphobic monster of a father, and he doesn't have the brains to transcend that. So he's just going to internalize and hold on to that homophobia for the rest of his life. But the rest of it, of course, is absolute nonsense. The idea that Mike Pence decided to search his house for documents, has turned them in to save Joe Biden, is so stupid that one would hope even a member of Tucker Carlson's audience would be able to see through it. And I don't just mean that obviously he wouldn't want to save Joe Biden, but if the idea that he is putting forward is that somebody coming out with a revelation that they have documents that in theory they didn't need to reveal is meant to save the person that came before them in this ladder of scandal, well then I guess if Pence did it to save Biden, then Biden did it to save Trump, I suppose. Why did Biden reveal it? Why didn't Biden just shred the documents? Is it possible that Mike Pence, well, I might disagree with him on a lot of different stuff, wants to avoid more serious consequences by willingly giving up the documents, or maybe feels like he should actually comply with the law, and that Joe Biden, while I disagree with him on virtually every political topic, also feels that way in those two ways? Is it possible that maybe there is something distinct between both of them on the one side and Trump on the other, that Trump believes he is above the law, and that in fact Tucker Carlson wants him to be above the law? But anyway, no, that's not convenient. So Tucker goes on to say, we can't say for certain, but it's entirely possible. In fact, it's likely that Mike Pence was asked to do this by federal prosecutors who are trying to build a case against his old boss, Donald Trump. The point would be to show that not every federal official walks off with state secrets. Donald Trump was uniquely evil in this regard, as in so many others. He does his condescending voice. First of all, if your idea is to show that not everybody has secret documents, it's a weird plan to do that by showing that you have secret documents. So I don't understand what the hell that's supposed to mean. But again, this is why I feel kind of bad for Alex Jones recently. That is exactly as stupidly fact-free conspiratorial as anything that Alex Jones would say, but it is convenient to believe it, and so he just says it. Mike Pence putting forward that he has these documents is a behind the scenes chess game designed to stop Trump somehow, even though Pence stood by Trump's side for literally years, has barely even criticized him after the guy tried to get him murdered. But again, he reveals this, and that is inconvenient, and thus he is a traitor. Jayar, I hate it.
Someone
I hate
should
the whole
ask.
thing.
This is when repetitive questions over and over again need to start being asked. So you have folks that are supporting, I guess, conservative movements, pundits like Tucker Carlson here. Every time Mike Pence sticks his face back in front of a camera and a microphone, someone should ask him. So media reports, some say in the media that you're assisting Joe Biden with this document issue. Is that the truth, Mike? And he's got to answer. He's got to talk about this. Almost cursed there. This BS that they keep spewing all over the place. They just say it, it stays in the ether. No one brings it back up again, except for the folks who retained it and then build there's some kind of a political reality based off of these absolute blatant lies. It needs to be asked again of the people who are the players in this. Mike Pence, did you help Joe Biden by setting up your document and classified document issues? Make him answer the question. He's got to say either I have no comment or who said that. He's got to say something because now that they're attacking their others in a way, they need to be on record for what their response is to it. Because if a Democrat says it, guess what? They will be asked. How about we ask him now?
The whole thing is so ridiculous. Because again, if they had a single principle, this would be easy to manage for them. They would simply have to state what they want the standard to be and then apply it. That's it. But they can't do that because they want there to be a different standard. They want the guy who did the worst version of this to get off scot-free. They want the guy who did a much lesser version and possibly completely without knowing it to be sentenced to death. And particularly because he's the vice president, so he couldn't declassify documents. But oh wait, now there's a Republican vice president. We also want him to get off scot-free. So it's just they're contorting themselves around all of these desires of theirs when you could just have principles and live by them. It's way simpler. It doesn't pay as well. I don't have as fancy a house as Tucker Carlson. And note that I say house when he has many houses, but it is a simpler, more consistent way to live. Anyway, we need to take our second break because this hour is flying by. When we come back, Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, still terrible after all these years. We'll show you how after this. By the way, very briefly, to the people shaming me for being an enthusiastic fan of Wednesday, it was like the most streamed thing on Netflix like ever. Don't make me feel bad. It was so popular. They already confirmed a season 2.
Is it because it's like geared towards like 18-year-olds or something?
Or younger.
Yo, that's fine. I still watch cartoons, first of all.
That's true. That's true. Okay, I'm not gonna feel that bad. Yes, it very much got the Riverdale treatment. I didn't watch that, but anyway. Okay, with that said, we've got a lot of news to get to, so let's just jump right into it, people.
You run for office in 2024. You gonna run as a Democrat?
Chuck, I haven't made a decision what I'm gonna do in 2024.
Isn't that fun? I mean, why should the Democratic Party and Democratic voters have any reason to believe when they elect and then re-elect a guy from a party that he won't turn tail and run to independence if he feels like that'll save him? But here's the thing, Chuck Todd is asking Joe Manchin about running for re-election to the Senate. As bad as and as annoying as that might be, what if his eyes were set at a higher prize? Take a look at this.
What's on the table? Is re-election on the table?
Everything's on the table.
Is running for governor on the table or no?
No, I've done that.
That you've ruled out.
I've done that. Yeah.
So everything on the table, there's basically only one other thing, the presidency. Is that something you would do outside the Democratic Party?
The only thing I can tell you is what I will do is whatever I can when I make my decision, what I think is the best that I can support and represent the people of West Virginia, but also be true to this country and the Constitution of this country.
That sounds like somebody that's looking for a way into national politics.
Well, every senator is on a national.
I understand that, but you know where I'm going.
I know where you're going, and the bottom line is
you're not telling me no.
I'm telling you that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that when I make my decision, I make it based on what's best, what I think I can do to support and best for my country and my state.
We're gonna get to Joe Manchin in just a sec, but I need to stop just briefly for my favorite person in the news, Chuck Todd. This is why so many people dislike him. He was talking to Joe Manchin about the possibility of this guy who has repeatedly and intentionally, by design, because he was bought, stymied Joe Biden's agenda, an agenda that got Joe Biden elected to the presidency. And Chuck Todd was talking to him like he was talking to an actress about a possible pregnancy. You sound like a person that's like, maybe considering it. Is that a thing? Like, what do you talk? Like, you're supposed to technically be a journalist. Certainly you would say, compared to a chucklehead on YouTube like me, that you're a journalist. Like, oh, maybe you run for the presidency. He is wildly unpopular. Why would he have any chance? Why are you pretending that that's a possibility? And when he repeatedly says, the only thing I care about is representing the people, you could have maybe prepared a couple of stats on the votes he's taken versus what people in West Virginia actually want, what they've repeatedly voted for. You could do that. You could provide like 3 neurons worth of pushback against the narrative that he is trying to push. But of course, Chuck Todd is not there to do that. He has been put on TV by the same people that put Joe Manchin in the Senate. And so instead, we get that vapid conversation about one of the least popular politicians in the country potentially running for the presidency. Jayar.
Of course we do. Because again, and I said this when I went to DC the first time I went there, and I was milling around, going near the Capitol, and just general space where you may see folks that are working. Yo, these folks walk around, these politicians walk around like they're Hollywood stars or something, because it's like it's Hollywood East. DC, from the folks that are elected officials, especially ones that are known well, like Manchin and people like that, they walk around and as soon as someone sees them, they're like, yeah, they know who I am. And they're treated the same way by media that interview them. So running for the presidency is always that conversation. Liz Cheney went through it. Of course, Donald Trump goes through it. Ron DeSantis is gonna go through it. And they start asking these questions with this giddy nature like, are you gonna run for president? Because this is the most exciting news ever. Not, why are you running for president? What is it you're gonna do when you run for president? Yeah. What is it that's motivated you to do so? Why would you run against someone else in this particular situation? He tried to sneak in there, would you run as an independent or potentially a Republican? He tried, but instead it turns to the joking nature of, well, you know what I'm trying to ask? Come on, Manchin, you know what I'm trying to ask? Well, just ask it. And then afterwards, ask him why. That won't come because the end of the headline is, Joe Manchin might run for president. And the reasons why I don't think Chuck Todd should lose his job, but the reasons why so many people dislike him, but then the network does, is because that is the job. Get that headline out, get that question in. Why and what you're gonna do is absolutely irrelevant. The headline is there.
Yeah, 100%. You could then transition into an so if you run for president, obviously you're gonna need to raise a lot of money. Do you believe that the fact that like you clearly are corrupt when it comes to fossil fuel industry is gonna lead to a lot of donations to your campaign from them? Like he could make it substantive. If you're gonna make it about a guy who is definitely never gonna be president, if that's the conversation, you could at least try to inject a little bit of substance into it. For instance, you could ask him about the fact that he's introducing a bill to delay EV tax credits. Because again, this dude, like, is he secretly married to the concept of an inhabitable Earth? Like, is that like a thing in the? This is a part of the bill that was already passed, the IRA, that would reduce the cost of electric vehicles. He goes on TV and says constantly, I'm just here to help the people of West Virginia by making sure that they have to pay $2,500 more if they ever buy an electric car. It's mad. It's maddening. Okay, we have so much to get to, and I apologize for taking so long. We're gonna get to the other videos on tomorrow's show. We are gonna do that. For now, though, we're gonna move on to our D block because there's other stuff that we desperately have to talk about. I want to warn you in advance of this video that this is definitely on the even more brutal than usual end of police brutality videos. So I want you to bear that in mind, a content warning as we proceed to our next story. That is a video of a group of police officers absolutely brutalizing a 27-year-old man named Randall Worcester. And this is a case where we're kind of getting the best possible outcome of what you just saw that we can expect, and it's terrible. They were suspended, eventually some were fired, and now the update is that 2 of them are being charged with civil rights violations in that violent arrest. That is, I guess, the good side. We'll have to see what happens with those charges. The bad side is that it took 150 days after that video was available for these charges to be filed. 150 days is a lot of days. So they got this guy. They have told stories about why they felt like they needed to do what you just saw. Witnesses say that it's all lies. And honestly, I don't even care, because even if the cover story of him supposedly trying to run or whatever was true, none of that, nothing would justify a guy who is already incapacitated repeatedly being punched as hard as you can in the head. And then when I guess your punches aren't doing enough damage, you pick up his head and slam it repeatedly on the concrete, and then say that you didn't do anything wrong and this was totally justified violence. The fact that it would take the investigators month after month after month after month to decide that, oh, maybe we should look into this. Maybe this is something that merits a bit more talk. Jayar, what do you think?
I mean, again, you said it's sad that it's possibly the bad news that something is coming down, though. But who knows how much, and how much is this going to change? Again, when we talk about policing and crime and all that stuff, it's about deterrence. How do you stop this from happening the next time? Because those tough on crime folks, those back to blue folks, are always on that line. How do we stop this? Because they've been charged for criminal, I guess this is civil, but for beating the hell out of this guy while they're supposed to be doing their job. When are we gonna talk about how do we stop this from happening? Is anyone ever saying that? Instead they go with, look at this, defund the police crowd. And it turns into demonizing them with labels and characteristics rather than talking about what it is they're looking for and why they're looking for it. Why do we show these brutality videos of people getting knees thrown into their side or head or whatever the hell on his body he's been thrown knees into multiple times? Why is that disgusting? Why does it need a content warning? Because it's disgusting and someone possibly could have died from that, or severely injured, or then forever upset and mad and scared of police officers. Maybe you want to retaliate as you're afraid for your lives every day when you're gonna pull someone over. Maybe it's because you've done this many things so many different times and there's no consequences that now people are left thinking, yo, we have to take the money away and change the way that they do it. Instead of understanding that that's why we watch these things over and over and over again. Instead, it's look at what they wanna do. Look at what keeps happening. Look at how much you don't care that it keeps happening. Aren't you the bad guy? That you love this type of stuff? Because you never see them go, that was horrible. I don't want that to happen again. Have you heard anybody that supports the blues say that? No, they go, he deserved it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, again, there are way more ways that a lot of Americans overlap than is generally acknowledged. Like, core economic potential policies, those sorts of things have widespread appeal. But there are some significant ways that groups of Americans disagree or differ. There are people who can look at that video and say that was justified. Why? I don't know, some reason. Tell me the reason, whatever, I don't care. Because they like seeing that. They want to see more of that. They love that. They love way more than that. Yeah. They love the head being slammed to the concrete. They love a kid getting an assault rifle, going across state lines and gunning down protesters. They love way worse than just a head being slammed on concrete. How you reform a system that allows cops like that to, up until very recently, always get off, and recently mostly get off, is a difficult question. How you reform a country that is full of millions of people that want to see more people brutalized by the state, all the while saying that they live free and don't tread on me and all that, when they love watching the boot get placed on someone's skull. That's a far more complicated question going forward. We're actually gonna be talking with Congressman Ro Khanna on the other side of our upcoming break about a possible way to reform at least some of this excess violence out of the police. So thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening on the show so far. We do have more coming up in the aftermath, including Congressman Ro Khanna, so don't go anywhere. Jayar and I'll be back in just a second.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.